Hello and welcome to another video for O-level math. We were doing fractions, decimals, and percentages in the last video. This video is about working with decimals. The first thing that I want to teach you in this video is addition and subtraction of decimals. Let's talk about that. Okay. So addition and subtraction is only possible by you see following the steps. Add zero point 0 to the whole number to remind you where the decimal point belongs. So you write 3 as 3.0. That's what I've done here. Okay. What you need to make sure is that whenever you're adding or subtracting decimals, then the decimal must appear in the same line as in my case. Okay. Although they had different number of decimal places and whole numbers, what I've tried to do is I've tried to organize it in such a way that I am writing the decimal below each decimal and uh, adjusting the other numbers accordingly. Okay. Now, if you want, you can put a double zero here as well to make the number of decimal places equal. But you should remember that if the decimals are absent, then there are zeros there. Okay. So 6 and 5 add up to 11. You carry 1. That adds up to 2. 1 and 1, 2. That adds up to another 2. 0 plus 2 plus 0. Then 3 plus 1 adds up to 4, and then 44. Okay, this is shown to you here as well. You can see the calculation. Okay, let's do example number 14. It says calculate the following. So 2.501 and 12.6. Okay, I've written them together. I'll put out a plus sign 1, 0, 11. And the decimal appears here only. Okay, below the decimal that's there. So 15.101. That's part A. Part B is about subtraction. Let's see what's different about subtraction. Okay, remember to write the bigger number on top and the smaller number below, regardless of which one has the negative sign. Then you can decide accordingly what the sign should be, but you should subtract accordingly. Okay, so there's no number here, so that's basically 3 minus 0, that gives you 3. 7 minus 2 gives you 5. 3 minus 0 again gives 1 minus 1 gives you 0, sorry, and 3 minus 0 gives you 3. Then the decimal 5 minus 1 gives you 4, and nothing else. So 44.3053. Okay, that is how you add and subtract decimals. Usually on the paper, when they come up in paper 1, relatively easier than this. But this is just to show you what addition and subtraction of decimals looks like. Okay. Then you have multiplying decimals. For example, to simplify 2.16 to 0. To multiply, not simplify, to multiply 2.16 to 0.002, follow the following steps. At first, ignore the decimal points. So what you are basically doing is you're thinking about multiplying 216 with just 2. Okay, there's just one number that's 2. So you're trying to multiply with that. So what you do is you start multiplying by 2 and you write 2 times 6 is 12. You put out a 1. 2 times 1 is 2. You put out a 3. You don't put a decimal. 2 times 2 is 4. So you write 432. That's 216 multiplied by 2. Then says start from the right, multiply using the normal method. That's what you've done. Count how many digits come after the decimal point. What do I mean here? Well, you take these two numbers collectively. There are 2 decimal places here and 5 decimal places, 3 decimal places here. So that makes a total of 5 decimal places. Okay. So 1, 2, 3. I have 3 decimal places. So what I'm doing is I'm putting out 2 more decimal places. I'm going to say that the decimal place will appear here. 0.00432. Okay, that is, there are 5 digits after the decimal, so counting 5 places from the right is necessary to insert 2 zeros. That's what you've done. Multiplying by 10, 100, 1000, and so on is straightforward with decimals. For example, 0.013 multiplied by 100. So you don't really need to do all the multiplication and so on. What you can do is you can count the number of zeros and move the decimal forward. Okay, when you're multiplying, you move the decimal forward. When you're dividing, you move the decimal backwards. So this is going to be 1 point. Okay, let's talk about these. So this is simple. Moving the decimal place forward, it's going to be 351.3. then just one decimal place forward, so 0.12. Okay, 0.12 or 0.12 if you want. Then there's three decimal places, so I'll need another zero here. I'm going to write 4120. Then 2.1 multiplied by 1.1 is normal multiplication. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply 21 by 11. Okay, 1 times 1 is 1, 1 times 2 is 2. Put across, I multiply with this one, so I get 231. How many decimal places were there in the original question? 1 and 2. So I'm going to count two decimal places, 1, 2, and then put the decimal. So the answer to this would be 2.31. Okay. Okay. Then the tough part of decimals is dividing by dividing decimals. As an example, to divide 63.6 by 0.012. So that's what we are trying to do. 63.6 divided by 0.012. So first write it like that as a fraction form. Okay. Okay. Now you multiply top and bottom by 10, 100,000 or 10,000 until the lower number is a whole number. In this case, we need to use 1,000. What this simply means is that you need to get rid of the decimal places. This is one decimal place and this has three decimal places. So this is going to be multiplied by 1,000 to get rid of the decimal places. That is what happens. Okay, that's one way of seeing it. Okay, but you can't just simply multiply the denominator, you also need to multiply the numerator. Okay, so that is how you think about it. So this actually becomes what sort of a division? This becomes 63600 because I need to move three decimal places divided by 12. Okay, this question is actually 63600 divided by 12. There's another way of thinking about this as well, and I think that you might find that a little easier, but it has the same thing. Okay, so 63.6 divided by 0.012. What I was taught when I was your age is that I was taught to remove this decimal place like that. And because I've removed one decimal place, I put a multiply by 10 in the denominator. Similarly, I was told to move the decimal place like that, and that gives me 1000. Okay, ultimately it's still going to give me 636. I cancel out the 0. The decimal has been removed, so this becomes 63600 divided by 12. Okay, it gives me the same answer, whichever way you want to think about it. Then you start reducing. Okay, or you can take it into long division and do the long division part, but we've learned how to reduce, so I'm going to do that. 2 times 3 times 1, 2 times 8 and double 0. Okay, I think I can read the table for 6. 6 times 1, 6 times 5 is 13. 1 remains. 6 times 3 is 18. And then double 0. Okay, so that gives me 5300. Okay, then it says dividing decimals by 10, 100 and 1000 is also straightforward. For example, if 0.234 is divided by 1000, you start moving the decimal backwards. How many points backwards? 3 places backwards. Okay, so that's going to give you 0.000234. Let's calculate that. Although this should not say GNH, but it does, so let's live with that. Okay, so just two decimal places backwards then. So 0.0016. Try to do this one. Okay, so I'm going to use my method that I learned. I remove this decimal, so I put into 100 in the numerator because there were two decimal places, and then 1000 in the denominator because that was three decimal places. Two zeros cancel out. So this becomes 31323 divided by 30. 3 times 10. Start dividing by 3. 3 times 1. Okay. 3 times 4. I'll need a 0 because 1 doesn't divide with 3. So 4. And then 4 is 12, then 4 times and divide by 10. So that gives me 1044.1. I'm hoping I've done this correctly. I think I have. Put it aside. Yeah. Okay. This is correct. So this gives me 10441 divided by 10, and that gives me 1044. Okay. Then you see these are past paper questions. Let's talk about these. This is from paper 1. So this is a no calculator. So what did you learn about multiplication? That you multiply without looking at the decimals. So it's basically 7 into 5, 35. Then how many decimal places do you need? You need 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, so you count your decimal places. You have 1 and 2. You put extra zeros. That's your final answer. Then when you're dividing, you remove this decimal place and you generate 100 in the numerator. 100 divided by 125. I think this easily reduces with 25. So 25 times 4 and 25 times. Okay. 4 over 5. It says evaluate as a decimal. So you have to write 4 over 5. Now remember we did 4 over 5 as a common fraction and that was 0.8. You can also do this. Put a decimal. 5 times 8 is 40. That gives you that. Then some more past paper questions, although we haven't talked about percentages, let's talk about it the next part of the chapter, not in this part. But if you remember, simply whenever you want to convert a number to a percentage, you simply multiply by 100. Okay, so 0.527 multiplied by 100 is going to give you 52.7%. Then division is what I want to teach you in this question again. You remove the decimal numbers, that generates a 10 in the denominator, that generates 100 in the numerator. To cancel out, you get 8 times 1, 8 times 7, so 70. Okay, some more past paper questions. Let's talk about these. This is a subtraction question. We've not seen subtraction so far. What was the rule? That if you don't have a decimal, put a 0.0 so that you can write the other number as well. I need to do a subtraction, so I've written the bigger number on top. I can't subtract right now, so let's borrow 7. I can't subtract this right now, so let's borrow. Okay, so the answer is 6.7. Then when you want to multiply, you ignore the decimal numbers, ignore the decimal places, and you just multiply. So this is just 17 times 3, if you remember that. 17 times 3 is 51. If you don't, then you multiply normally. 3 times 7 is 21. 3 times 1 is 3. You add 2, you get 50. How many decimal places am I looking at? 1, 2, 3. So 1, 2, I'll need another 0, so 0.0. Okay, this is a divide sign. So this question is 3 plus 25 divided by 2. If you remember from the rules before, what do you do first? You divide first and then add. So 25 divided by 2 is something that you'll need to do. Okay, if you remember that directly, it's just half of 25. Half of 25 is 12.5. So the answer should be 15. We will talk about this in the next part of the next video, where I teach you a bit about percentages. That's it for this video. I will see you in the next video. Make sure to like and subscribe, and ask your questions in the comments.